welcome back. You're listening to Houston Real Estate Radio. If you missed any of today's show, you can go online to HoustonRealEstateRadio.com where we have videos of the show. And you've got a special treat this week because you've got the Real Estate Rat Pack in the house. They have They were dying to get that out. I couldn't suppress them any longer. They were dying to get that out. We brought in the Rat Pack because I want to talk about some of the industry business interruptions that are on the horizons. But before I do, I want to go back to the last segment. We were talking about Tree Pack and how important it is for affiliates to invest as well as realtors, and for consumers that are listening, because I know our audience is a consumer-based audience. I want to let you know that you can Google Voice for Texas or go to voicefortexas.com and get information about how you can also invest in making those great real estate decisions for the future and protecting the industry for homeowners. Because if legislation changes, if regulations change to the point that homeowners are not able to purchase homes, or that all of these things affect the homeowners, and so definitely get your voice heard. That's the way to do it at Voice for Texas. Okay, since Joe didn't get to talk much last segment, we're going to start with Joe. And we put you in the corner just like you are on your show. See?
Yeah.
You like that. You're comfortable over there.
It feels the same.
All right, let's talk a little bit about business interruptions, because there are so many business interruptions on the horizon for our industry. We have the huge CFPB changes that start on October 1st. They were August 1st. They moved them to October 1st. And even with the credit industry, you said they're causing some changes for you guys too.
Well, it's been good actually for us, because most of the resistance we dealt with before was with the FTC, who is really the industry oversight.
FTC is?
Federal Trade Commission,
okay.
Sorry. And at the time, the FTC was headed by John Leibowitz, who stepped down in 2013. And he would, he had a very interesting perspective on our industry, largely because he was previously legal counsel for one of the credit bureaus. So
conflict of interest?
Yeah, right? Just a little bit. Yeah. He oversees the industry that he used to be a legal counsel for. Nothing fishy there at all. And there was a lot of issues in that. And, he pursued, his organization pursued legal action against a lot of the industry, despite being routinely, and I mean routinely, ruled against, down to the Supreme Court of California ruling against the FTC on legal action they took. And his words were, in essence, we understand that that's the court's views, but we don't agree.
Wow.
I don't know of any other entity that gets the prerogative
that kind of have that mentality.
Yes, I'm like, I don't know if do I get that option to say, hey, I know the court ruled against me, but I just don't agree. So we're going to keep doing what we were doing. And so he stepped down in 2013, and there's been a lot of positive change since then. But you know what? Overall, the credit bureaus, the credit reporting agencies, CRAs, have really gotten away with flat out breaking the law on a regular basis. And that's not just my opinion. That's the opinion of some very high-level people. Mark DeWine, the Ohio State Attorney General, said on national TV on 60 Minutes, he says, I believe that the credit bureaus, and then he paused and he said, no, let me rephrase that. I know that the credit bureaus are violating the law. That's pretty serious when an attorney general calls you out on national TV. If he said it about my company and I wasn't breaking the law, I'd be filing defamation, libel suits, you name it. But they said nothing. Why? Because they know he's right. And it's a sad thing, but it's in the last couple of years, we've really seen a lot of positive change. New York State won a case against the credit bureaus in February, and some sweeping changes that had to take place. Of course, the next month, the credit bureaus came out and in a very magnanimous gesture said, we've all met together and we've decided, we've always been looking out for the consumer's interests, and so we're going to be instituting some additional changes just to really go above and beyond what we've been required to do. Because the court told them they had to. But anyway, that's kind of our industry. The CFPB has really kind of been flexing their muscles on the consumer's behalf.
They protect the buyers. They don't protect sellers. They don't really protect consumers. They really protect buyers.
Yeah,
Buyers, people that are getting loans. That's really who they should say they're the lending institute, not the consumer.
Yes, right. I had the opportunity to sit down with Corey Stone, who's the assistant deputy director for the CFPB, and several of his staff members for a few hours, few glorious hours of grueling about our industry. At the time, Richard Cordray hadn't been appointed yet, so he was the head honcho. So it was a little intimidating sitting there with, the head of a organization the size of the IRS, and having him grill you about your industry for several hours. But the very first paper that the CFPB published was straight out of our conversation, which was about the issue of so many different credit scores that the consumer has access to. A lender pulls their scores, they're going to see one thing. If they go to a car dealership, they're going to see another thing. If they pull it online themselves, they're going to see another thing. It's so flippin' confusing for the consumer. And the CFPB released this article saying, in essence, it's causing financial harm to the consumer because they may pull a consumer score, which doesn't hurt their score, doesn't, the inquiry doesn't show up, and they like, oh, hey, my scores are good. Then they go over to Chris, and Chris says, whoa, your scores aren't good enough to get a loan.
Chris, can you weigh in on that? Because I know you deal with consumers all the time who want to purchase a house, and is this an issue that you're seeing?
It's definitely an issue. I mean, one of the things we've always seen is that there's different algorithms that are given for different types of purchases, and on the mortgage side, it's no different. The biggest thing that we see, and I think any lender out there, any type of lending will tell you, is the amount of errors that are on credit reports is still astronomical today. And Joe and I talk about this all the time, is there are more errors on a credit report that are known and that just can't be corrected. Why? Because a lot of times what ends up happening is they end up having an issue. They go through the credit reporting agency. They try to get it corrected. They come back. They've got 30 days in which it can be removed, et cetera, et cetera. But nothing ends up happening because here's the baseline reason why. The credit bureaus are really paid for by the creditors who are using them, meaning the industries that's reporting to them, the Fords of the world, the people who are actually giving the credit. So the consumer has very little leverage to make some of those changes out there.
Yes.
Well, I know CFPB is going to cause some waves in your industry for sure for lending, but it's also affecting us as realtors. Rob, what do you think is going to be the biggest effect we're going to see come October 1st?
I think realtors' understanding of how it's going to work. Because I know that I've been to several classes already, but I know there's a lot of people out there who have not, and they're not going to know what's going on. Our value proposition to consumers has gone up exponentially because those who have taken the time to learn how it's going to be, there's a lot of moving pieces to it.
And no one is requiring agents take it. So I've heard a few E&O companies are, but the majority of them are not. No, HRER doesn't require it. TAR, NAR, there are no requirements. So you're going to have a lot of agents who don't get any training on
this.
I
think you're going to have some issues because I was looking at the fine schedule that CFPB can levy against somebody, and anyone who does something intentionally, it's $1 million a day.
And it can be anyone. It doesn't have to be.
The big target is on the lenders. That's the big target. But there's targets on everybody involved with the transaction, title companies, realtors. So nobody's immune from the CFPB. When I'm teaching class, I always talk about the CFPB. Is like, guess who they're accountable to? Nobody.
Themselves.
Guess what the appeal process is?
There is
none. And guess how they get their money? They're unfunded. So guess where they get their money?
Fines. They want to fine people.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, it's a little scary. Tim, is this going to affect your industry at all? Insurance?
Not the CFPB so much, but
you have some other issues on the horizon.
On a pure insurance basis, but most insurance companies now they all have a banking arm and an investing arm, and so it's since it used to be all those houses were kept separate, but not anymore. But we use those same algorithms, and the credit reporting companies have 800 or 900 different data points that they collect. And when you subscribe, you give them your secret recipe of which data points you want them to put in your recipe. And we may be trying to predict whether or not someone is going to be a good insurance risk and a lender is trying to predict whether they're going to get paid back. And any other number of people who use those data
Right.
points are trying to predict and gauge different things. And so, like Joe was talking about, it doesn't always show up on your credit report as there's hard hits and soft hits and different types of inquiries. So it's nice to think that somebody knows what's going on, because I don't.
All right, we've got the Real Estate Rat Pack here in the studio today, and you're listening to Houston Real Estate Radio. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors, so stick around.